Hey y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. This is episode number 185, and we have a show for y'all tonight. I am super excited about it, but before I go ahead and give away the goodies and everybody knows what's going on, I'm going to bring in my co-host, the world famous Hans, East Texas. Hans, what is going on tonight?
World famous. There you go.
Famous.
You know, this is the second weekend of rifle season down here in Texas, and I'm going to tell you another unsuccessful weekend for me. Sat in the stand for a long time. I'm going to tell you one thing, and I want to go way into the description here. Again, my hunt got interrupted by having to go to the bathroom, leaving my stand to go take a serious bathroom break. And I'm convinced my gut will not allow me to be a great deer hunter. Sitting in the stand for that long, it's just not going to happen.
This falls under too much information, but
exactly.
Yeah,
so if I ever wanted to be a professional, famous deer hunter, it's never going to happen. I need to just stick to hunting at night in the woods where I can disappear for a few minutes, take care of business, and then get back to work and not spook everything. But when you get out of your deer stand, and at 7 a.m, every deer within a mile of you starts blowing, at you. And so anyway, I will never be a great deer hunter because of my gut. So there may be some other reasons, but we'll just go with your gut. We'll use my gut will never let me. I don't know. I just sitting there and get too excited, and I don't know. Just everything's going. But anyway, I mean, we have a big show for y'all today. This is. Well, we'll get all into it and talk more about it, but we have got the official review of the N-Vision Halo XRF. So many of you will be saying to yourself, this scope has been out for a long time, and that is true. And there's some reasons why we've had to delay this review, and a lot of it's just for having this thing in stock and having it available. And it's still, with it being released as long as it has been released, it's still in huge demand. You can't keep them on the shelf. And
let's talk about that. This is fall 2021, and it's always say it's been around a long time. It hasn't been that long. It was summer, and this thing really started shipping. And we'll tell you, this has been an extremely popular scope. And I'm going to, we kind of always give these caveats when we talk about expensive scopes. There's some guys listening to this going, my truck cost as much as this scope. And we know it's not for everybody, but I'm going to tell you, for the guys who want the best of the best, the best scope they can get, this is their hobby. This is their passion. This is maybe a business for them. This is a side gig. They're making money, whether it's, selling pelts, or whether it's, hunting hogs or varmint hunting for farmers or people, whatever it is, this is the best of the best. And so there's a lot of guys that this is a tool to them, no different than a, very expensive table saw or something to a carpenter. And so they want this tool. And so it has been an extremely high demand. It is the most popular model out of all of the N-Vision Halo X models, and in just a minute here, I'll mention some of those other models, but we have waited several months to do this review. And even tonight, we don't have one of these in front of us. We have used this scope extensively in the field, but we were rushing some of that simply because we had so many people wanting these scopes that we really didn't want to take and keep two of these for ourselves to use endlessly, because it's just we've gotten so few, and that they've all been pre-sold. We always take the first one or two off the top, and no different here. But it was like we just couldn't keep them, and we have held on for a very long time to our other Halo X models that we've used. And Hans has got review of the Halo X50. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. But this XRF, the demand was just there. Guys were deposits waiting, and still are. Right now we still have guys waiting, and so it was like, we just cannot, in good conscience, keep the scope with guys begging for it. So we've had to, sell demos and do everything else, and wait till the smoke clears, and hopefully the supply gets better. and then, you know, we'll have our own models to keep and to use. But so it is a little bit different. We're not going to have the scope in front of us tonight, just simply because of that. Yes, we've used it extensively in the field, but it is, we don't have one with us tonight because, again, we've gone several months down the road. We just had so many other scope reviews to do and planned. And the last thing I'll say is Hans will probably either show some footage in this show. I'm putting him on the spot. I guess he might put some in here. If he does, that will be from the Halo X50 because, you know, he did a full review. You can go over to his YouTube channel. That's Hans ETX, HANSETX, and search for Halo X50, 50. And that is the exact same scope as this scope minus the laser rangefinder. So I'll tell you what, Hans, I know we didn't plan this, and I'm just rambling, but I'm going to go real quick and explain these 3 new Halo X models, new for 2021. And we have the Halo X35, and that unit is a 2.5 power base magnification, and it's got, look, we'll get into the features and all that in a minute. It's got all the same features. Then we've got the Halo X50, which is a 3.5 power. The Halo X50 is basically $8,500. The Halo X35, $7,500. And then we've got the Halo X RF. I couldn't say the word XRF, and that's for the laser rangefinder. That's the scope we're reviewing tonight. That's the $9,500. So 75, 85, 95. This is the creme de la creme. This is the top of the line. This is the Cadillac, the Escalade, the whatever you want to call it. This is it for the thermal and night vision hunting world.
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. And you talked about when the smoke settles. It is not settled yet because we still have people on back order lists, even though we have pre-sold every single one that we've ever gotten and never had one sitting on the shelf. So
it's been crazy,
it's
crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, it just shows you how great.
And I want to be clear too. We've
is.
Been getting these things, guys. I mean, it's not like we gotten 1 here and 2 there. They've been coming in, but it's just a super high demand. And you know, we've got more coming. I mean, we've got a allocation coming for, you know, the next month and the next month out. So anyway, if y'all are interested in any of this stuff, whether it's the XRF, whether it's any of the other N-Vision products, give Hans or I a call. Yeah. You can call us at Outdoor Legacy at 877-350-1818. You can go to the website, outdoorlegacygear.com. But really, if you want to know more about any of these optics or any other night vision or thermal, call us. We can walk you through it. We can explain how things compare and what they do and more about the features and that sort of thing. And we can also give you ETAs and wait times. And you never know. I mean, sometimes we may say, hey, wait a minute, we've got a shipment coming in a week, tomorrow, you know, whatever it is.
Never know.
Don't always make an assumption that it's going to take you months to get something. You know, holler at us and we'll be glad to help in any way. But Hans, let's get into the review of one of the most exciting scopes. I want to go ahead real quick. We always say we're going to do this up front and we forget, but we'll put some links in the description below. So if you're here and you're ready to just, you know, see what we think about it, the specs versus our overview versus all those things, Hans will put some links down below in the description. And, you know, you can go down there right now and see the different basically sections of the review. If you want to see every single bit of it and not miss a minute of it, then just forget about those and just sit back and watch the show.
All right. So, yeah, and I want to, like Jason said, there's going to be some Halo X50. So he did create more work for me, but he did give me a plug on my YouTube channel for my Halo X50 review. So although creating more work for me on editing this podcast, he did give me a plug. So I'll accept that as an offering. So
well, and the reason I'm saying this is because I had some XRF video and I have no idea where it is. So that's why I didn't want to admit that I got to dig through my computer and in the piles of thermal footage and see if I actually tagged it correctly. And so I figure it's safer to just let Hans pull it up and hope his organization is better than mine.
Exactly. So you're right. The Halo X50 and the XRF picture image is exactly the same. The scopes are almost identical, except the XRF has the laser rangefinder. So jumping into the specs of the N-Vision Halo XRF, the king of thermal scopes in our market, at least. This is a 640 by 480 thermal core resolution. This is the BAE, the famous BAE thermal core with the thermal, BAE thermal sensor on it. So, everybody's heard of BAE and the quality of this, American-made thermal core. A lot of people talking about American-made products, and obviously some of them want to focus on that and get something American-made. This is it. So this is they tout it as an American-made optic, and it surely is. So 640 by 480 BAE thermal core. It is a 12 micron, 60 hertz refresh rate. It does have a 50 millimeter objective lens, and it is a fixed focus. So Jason can explain that a little bit more when we get into the walk around, but it does have an eyepiece diopter focus. So if you wear corrective lenses, glasses, if you get bad eyes, you can, adjust the optical lens on that, or on the eyepiece diopter focus, to help you with that. It starts out on 3.5 power, and we can also talk about that too later, a little later on, Jason, sure, where we think, it may be more towards the 3 power, maybe not as high as 3.5, or maybe everybody else is wrong, but compared to some other three power scopes, it may not be exactly 3.5. It does have an OLED display, so OLED display. I'm sorry, I should go back. It has an 8 times digital zoom, starts on a 3.5 power. It takes 2 of the 18650 batteries. So this is a new feature, like Jason's talked about on the Halo X models. It does have rechargeable batteries. An awesome setup. Takes 2 18650 rechargeables. You can find these anywhere. They're inexpensive. I tell people you can buy a whole pocket full of them, take them out in the field, but 2 of them that will power this scope. Oh gosh, when we tested it, Jason, it was over 9 hours when we tested it, right?
It was a super long time. I mean, very, very long battery life. I was very impressed with it.
Right, exactly. So, other things they talk about as far as the manual, it does have a manual nuke. So if people are questioning that or want to understand a little bit what that means, we can talk about that too. But manual recalibration process. They say that the detection range is over 2,000 yards, 2,020 to be exact. N-Vision lists their specs as far as recognition range at 726 yards and ID range at 380. Jason and I spoke about that before the show, and he said, I could recognize my wife. If you lined up 3 ladies at 380 yards, I could tell you which one was my wife.
Those numbers are way off. We'll talk more about that. I mean, it's way off as in way too conservative.
That's even more conservative. These numbers are to the right of Jason when it comes to conservative ID ranges. So if that's even possible,
as far right as you can get. So.
Exactly. The weight on it, 41.5 ounces, and the size is about almost 9 inches long. 4 inches in diameter. So, I guess pretty, as far as length, pretty standard. That's a pretty standard length in our industry, but. Anyway, Jason's going to be doing the walk around now. Like we spoke about before, we're going to be showing pictures of this. So if you want to see this, check out this scope. If you've never seen it before, hop on over to your YouTube channel, watch the video on there. You can kind of see some of this and see a little bit of footage of what to expect when you're checking out these through the optic video.
Exactly. So let's do this quick walk around of the scope. I mean, it's very simple. There's really not much to show here. And that's a good thing. I mean, it is just a simple to use, easy unit. So, starting at the rear of the scope, there is the rear diopter focus, as Hans said. Basically, all you're doing is you're focusing the screen to your eye. So, some people are like, well, I still don't know what that means. Well, if you've never used a thermal or night vision optic, just think of it like this. There is text on the screen. Okay, so whether it's numbers, letters, the menu, whatever, you are focusing that screen to your eye. And like Hans said, everybody's eyes are different. You may have glasses, you may not, you may need glasses, whatever. You just focus that in until it's nice and crisp for you. But moving all the way forward, you will notice there is no front focus. Now, this is something I'll go ahead and just jump into real quick and get it out of the way because a lot of times when we talk about less expensive scopes and we say, oh man, it's a fixed focus, that's a negative thing. We've always said with these super high-end optics, N-Vision and some of these super top-end manufacturers have got some mojo, some juju, something figured out. And the way they do this, I have no idea. But even with a fixed focus lens, they're actually able to whip the competition a lot of times, or all the time, I should say, speaking about this optic, even optics that, again, have a focusable lens. So you do not have to worry about focusing it. N-Vision has handled that for you, and it is fantastic. But moving back again, if we go over to the left-hand side, you can see there is this sort of an oblong box sticking off there. And in the case here of this XRF, you've got the actual laser rangefinder that is in front of this box. Again, this box and this laser rangefinder are permanently attached to the scopes, nothing that you can take off. And then what you will see behind there in this box that I'm talking about, that's actually the battery compartment. And facing the rear of the scope is I don't want to say lid, but battery cap, whatever. It's got a thumb screw in it. You take that out. It is magnetic. So when you start pulling that slowly out, it will be holding both of those 18650 batteries that they lay perfectly, horizontal, side by side, or on top of each other, but beside the scope, I'm trying to say. So you pull those things out, and that's how you'll replace those. And you can get that lid screwed down tight there. Again, fully waterproof, nothing to be concerned about there. Now, moving up to the top of the optic, you'll see that it's got the very familiar, what we call a 5-button layout. I always want to refer to it as like a remote control on a TV remote or something. It's very familiar to you. You've got up, down, left, right, and a center button to select. Very easy. So that's the general walk around of this optic. Also, I should mention right up here on the top, there is a external USB port. It's a female port to plug in a USB cable. It's got a rubber cover that you can press in there again to keep it sealed and waterproof when you're not using it. That would be if you wanted to use external power for some reason. I don't think you're going to want to do that unless you're just in some kind of a bind because of these 18650s and the long battery life. And then also that is another way that you can, connect that to your computer and pull off, videos that you've recorded there. I don't know if you mentioned this. You probably did, Hans, but I mean, if you didn't, I don't know. I probably fell asleep during your rundown of the specs. But this scope does have, like all the other Halo X's, it does have internal audio and video recording, as well as a streaming function to smartphones and tablets. And that is really what sets the Halo X's apart from any other high-end optic like this. We're going to go into a little bit more. I think there's some other things, image quality and things that really set it apart as well. But the fact that it does have, video recording, and again, these removable batteries and all this jazz, that's just something that the competition, in this elite category doesn't have.
Yeah, and we can name really when you think of N-Vision, their biggest competitor that, when you say N-Vision, a lot of people will also mention Trijicon in the same sentence. Yep. But their biggest, their main competition, I would say, would be Trijicon. And their N-Vision is doing things that Trijicon is not. And every couple of years, N-Vision now with their Halo line, they've improved it vastly with the Halo X's, and adding rechargeable batteries and adding internal video and audio recording is something that I know the market wanted, and I know that they, the market expects these type of features, especially beyond a $9,500 scope. But I mean, they've done something that their main competition has not done yet, and really it's pushed them very far past them.
It really has, and this is nothing against Trijicon. We've said before they're a good company, and we keep hoping that this extreme competition that has actually bypassed them will push them on to do more. But so far we haven't seen that, and I think that there's really, in my opinion, there's no debate anymore. I mean, we're talking about, if you want to, when somebody says, hey, what's the elite, thermal optics, it's N-Vision. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's image quality, it's warranty, it is, I mean, all these things, again, we're going to kind of get into in our overall thoughts. I guess we're doing it now, but it's warranty, it's image quality, it's features, it's it. I mean, they have put the total package together, and the market spoke and N-Vision answered. I mean, this is one of the things, I remember sitting down with the owners of N-Vision about, what was that, 3 years ago, whenever that was at SHOT Show. Hans and I sat down with them, and they're like, what would y'all really like to see out of our optics? Now, granted, I mean, Hans and I were probably the 100th people they'd ask, and we're probably the 101st who said, we'd like to see video recording, and at the time, we thought it was impossible to be done with these BAE sensors and to keep this image quality and all, but hey, they listened and they did it, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And then this specific optic, they have gone ahead and added that laser rangefinder. And so, guys that are out here seriously coyote hunting, or maybe long range hog hunting, but it's most of the time these guys that are really, really concerned about this are going to be the coyote hunters, the varmint hunters, the small game hunters, and they're in big fields, and they want a laser rangefinder and all the bells and the whistles. And if you want it, I mean, they have got it here. Now, Hans, I'm going to roll on into this here. We can discuss talking about these ID ranges. Kudos to N-Vision for being conservative, but they have way undershot what Hans and I would call the real ID range. And I'm sure they've got a very conservative definition and what this means, but I can tell you that, 300-400 yards, whatever they're calling it for identification, again, I'm sure that meets some definition they have. But for me, I don't know how far it is because I can't get on a field big enough that I can't ID something. I mean, it is a very, very long ways. I don't know what we said on the Halo X50s on that review. I mean, we probably same kind of deal. We're going a long, long ways. But I mean, 500-600 yards, I think is just no problem.
Yeah. And they have their recognition. I guess we'd have to find out what they define as recognition range and identification range. But their recognition range they have listed at 726 yards. I think that's pretty close to their ID range, because I know I've got a place where I can go and see 800 yards and I can see deer and cows and stuff like that, and it can clearly tell the difference between the two at that range. Now you're talking about several 100-pound difference, but I could also see coyotes, at that distance and be able to tell. So, I mean, it's going to be close to that 700-yard range, 700 yards, maybe a little bit further in some conditions. But this scope right here, I think, of all the scopes that we reviewed, is going to have the longest ID range of any scope that we reviewed.
But no longer than the X50. We need to be fair there. I mean, that's no longer.
No, it's the same.
It's the same as the Halo X50.
Same picture.
Exactly. But these two, by far, there's nothing I think that's going to be, as far as these. Now, this is it. I mean, without a doubt. And again, we'll be clear. I mean, we always like to add these caveats. We are not suggesting that you're going to buy this scope and you're going to go shoot 700-800 yards. We don't know that that's even, a reasonable thing to do most of the time at night, depending on what you're hunting, where you're hunting, whatever. But you are going to be able to look out there and have a darn good idea of what's coming in and, see it out there. And so it's really good.
It is. And I will say, if we sell a lot of these XRFs, but a lot of them to people in South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, these guys that are hunting long distances that can see literally for a mile. I mean, and they can see stuff coming in a lot of cases.
Further.
And, you know, those guys, I mean, they're IDing at stupid ranges just because they can see so far. And we would never want to let them take control of this section of the review because they would probably say it's double what we say it is. But, but these are guys that are hunting at very, very long ranges. We can talk about the need for a laser rangefinder, and we can probably clear this up pretty quickly. You know, deciding between the Halo X50 or the XRF. Obviously, the XRF has a laser rangefinder. The X50 doesn't, but it's completely, you know, they're the same scope minus the laser rangefinder with the X50. Same picture image. Here's the thing, and we didn't talk about this before the show, but I do want to answer this because a lot of people ask, do I need a laser rangefinder? My quick answer, and you can say if it's different than yours, if knowing the exact range makes you a more confident shooter, then by all means, you should have a laser rangefinder. And that is true if you are a hog hunter shooting 100 yards or a coyote hunter shooting 400 yards. A lot of people, though, it's a confidence thing, you know, confidence with your shot. You know, if you don't feel comfortable with your shot, you're probably not going to be able to make a good shot. So if it makes you a more confident shooter by having a laser rangefinder, I would definitely suggest it. If you are hunting in new properties quite often and you don't get a chance to go and see it during the day, I would definitely think about having an optic with a laser rangefinder like the XRF. And if you hunt in properties where there are not a lot of reference points that you can see during the day, like trees, a barn, whatever. I mean, some of these guys that are hunting, fence rows. Some of these guys are hunting in places where they can't see a tree anywhere in a field that they're at, you know, and they can see for a mile and there's no tree, there's no reference points. Thermal, as everybody knows, you have a difficulty with depth perception and judging distance. So if you kind of qualify for those three criteria, then you should consider an optic like the XRF that does have the laser rangefinder minus, you know, the Halo X50 that doesn't. So I wanted to throw that out there real quick and
I agree.
Share my thoughts on that.
Speaking of the laser rangefinder, I think also, you know, this is important to mention because one of the questions comes up is how does it work? And, you know, you can actually, you know, the laser range finding box comes up on the screen and it is there beside your reticle. So you can actually shoot while the laser range finding box is up. Some scopes don't operate that way. Some scopes, you know, when you turn the laser range finder on, the crosshairs temporarily go away or whatever. That's not the way this is. You can range while you have your crosshairs. You can put it in a scan mode where it's, you know, constantly scanning and giving you the range of everything that the little range finding box is on. Again, you can just put it for like you press the button and it sends the laser out and back. It is extremely accurate. One thing people ask me, they say, how far can I range with this? And the answer, in my opinion, I mean, we're not talking about, you know, how far is the laser, you know, scientifically. Really, it's how steady you can hold it. And so if you get this thing out of your truck and you go out there freehand and you're trying to range a coyote or a deer or a hog or whatever it is you're trying to tree, and it's at 500 yards and you're holding this thing up freehand, you're probably not going to be able to put a needle on that animal, okay? So you're going to need to be in a tripod or on a rest or on a bench or in a stand. You know, I mean, it's just common sense, but a lot of guys don't think about that. They're like, oh, well, I didn't, you know, you're right. I've got to be able to be rock steady. And so I think it's a very long ways. I think you can range further than you're going to shoot if you're on a good rest. And I would say a rest, a good tripod, a good, solid, steady tripod. I don't know that means, I mean, I think that's going to be something you're going to lock in on. If you're just using something with a yoke on it where you're just resting it on there, you're still going to be able to range a long ways, but probably not as far as if you've got a very, very solid rest and take out a lot of your shaking and your movement. But I cannot say enough good things about the laser rangefinder and the way that it works. One thing I think I will mention is that I've had this come up not just with the XRF, but with some other brands recently. And, you know, it's kind of an aha moment for a lot of guys, but they're like, you know what? It was kind of foggy the other night, or it was misting pretty heavy, or, you know, just that sometimes, you know how it's that mist in the air that it doesn't really feel like it's even raining, but it's just in the air. You're going to have a hard time in those kind of nights. And it's not just with this unit, it's with anything that's got a laser in it, period, because that laser beam is going to go out and hit that and try to bounce back, and it's not going to know what to do. So normal conditions, you should not have any kind of issues. But, you know, fog, you know, again, heavy mist, that sort of thing in the air, yeah, it's going to cause a problem, and it's going to cause a problem with any laser on anything. So just seems logical. But I had some guys call me, they're like, I never thought about that, but I think that's what's going on. I was like, yeah,
that's a good point.
So
definitely a good point, and definitely a good point about trying to hold that thing steady. It is, it'll ID longer than you can hold it steady, especially how small an object is that far away. If you're trying to, but I think they say it's accurate out to 1,000 yards. So if you can hold it very, very steady.
So, yeah. Well, you know, I want to just talk briefly here. You know, we've already just been kind of I'd say this is kind of rambling a little bit about this, going over the things, hitting the high points we think are really important. I think most guys that are going to buy a scope like this have already got a very good idea before they even watch this review of kind of what it is. Okay. If you're watching this review and you don't know what the image looks like, you don't have any clue, you probably got some more research to do. I mean, most guys I'd say you need to call us. You need to talk to us or you know, somebody else and get a good idea more about this scope and other scopes and how it really compares. Because at this point, most guys that are really looking to buy a $9,500 scope, they're familiar with what the image quality is going to be. Right. I mean, a pretty darn good idea. And so,
yeah, there's not too many guys calling up and saying, "Hey, what do you have in the $9,500 range?"
No, they know what it is.
When they call, they're asking specifically for it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly. So, I think that this scope, you know, in particular, I'm going to say is, we've already said it's good for the coyote hunter. It's good for the varmint or small game hunter. Hog hunters, we got guys that really aren't shooting over 200 yards, but then they don't care. It's like, hey, I want the image quality. I want a little extra magnification, and I'd like to have the laser rangefinder, so go for it. I mean, if it's in your budget, I mean, there's a lot of guys that simply will say, hey, the X50 is, you know, $8,500. That's $1,000 more. Give it to me. I mean, they want it. They don't mind spending the extra money. Rather have the laser rangefinder and not need it than wish they had it. So again, that's up to you on that. I know Hans.
The XRF has been an easier sell than the X50, which baffles me because you know it's $1,000 more. But people that XRF, people just want it, and those things fly off the shelf faster than any of the other halos are flying off the shelf. It's crazy.
It really is. It's been crazy. Now, Hans mentioned this earlier. We said we're going to get around to this, and I don't want to beat the dead horse here. If you've watched any of our N-Vision reviews, we always bring this up. We just think it's something that needs to be noted. We feel like compared to other brands, often that the N-Vision magnifications are a touch high by about a half a power. That's we've said the same thing about some of the Trijicons, and so I think that's they're basing their magnifications on this same Trijicon scale. But comparing to other brands, I think that the magnifications that you're going to find on these halos are going to be about a half a power more. I would consider this much closer to a 3 power that other brands will have. Now, I think it's fair to say maybe N-Vision is right and the world's all wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't really care. But what I do care about is that I just want a guy to understand that, because I've had some guys like, man, you know, I've got a 3 power scope right now. Maybe it's a, you know, whatever, a Pulsar, an iRail, whatever. And I'm looking at this N-Vision and I love 3 power, but man, I don't want any more. I mean, if I get more, I'm afraid it's going to be too much. And I'm like, it's not. if you're happy with 3 power, then you're going to like this scope. And so I would say the same thing again, as we mentioned about, the Halo X35. I'd say that's closer to 2 power than 2.5. So just something to keep in mind. It's not, and we've seen this for years. You can line up 3 or 4 or 5 scopes that all say they're 2 power or 3 power, and there's going to be a variation between them all. I mean, there's no question. We just like to bring that up. But so again, I don't always want to, just going back real quick, and I'll finish on this. I don't want to always peg this as the coyote hunter in North Dakota, in the Midwest, in Wyoming. The guy, talked to a guy today. He's in Minnesota hunting section roads. I didn't even know that Minnesota was sectioned up there in places. So, 1 square mile, 640 acres. He's talking about pulling up at a 4-way intersection. He's got thousands of acres to hunt, getting out of his truck, standing on the running board and looking 365 degrees and basically looking a mile in each direction. And I'm like, if I pull up to a 4-way crossroad in East Texas and I get out and do a 360, I'm going to see the brush and the privet hedge and the greenbriers and the pine trees that have grown up on all 4 corners of those old fence rows. And I'm going to see about 20 yards. That's it. So
that's exactly right.
It's very, very different. I understand that. But again, there are guys who maybe aren't hunting like that, but they still want a little more magnification, and they want a laser rangefinder, and they want the best of the best image quality. And I think this is it. So Hans, let's do this. We never like to finish a review without, giving a list of what we like, which we've been doing that for 30 minutes now, but we also like to try to pick things apart. If there's anything that we would change, if we can find something that's not our favorite or not our preference or what we'd like to see in the future, what are your thoughts here on this scope?
You want me to give my likes and then my dislikes?
Give whatever you like, dislike. Tell me what you think.
Sounds good. So I'm going to say something that you didn't mention that I think is fair to talk about. The video quality is amazing. The video, because a lot of people ask, well, is the video that you see on the internet, is it close to what you see through the scope? Yes, the picture quality, the video quality is very comparative to what you see through the scope, but the video quality, and the audio to me sounds great. It's, you just have to hear it. If you watch the N-Vision videos, the XRF videos online, you'll see what I mean. The audio sounds perfect on it. Obviously the picture quality is a big deal, the best in the industry, but the rechargeable batteries, I said, 18650s, the fact that they went with 18650 batteries and didn't come up with some proprietary battery, or that just shows you they're in the scope business. They're not in this accessory business. They just want to build the best scope, and kudos to N-Vision for doing that. 18650s, find them anywhere. They'll last a long time. That's a big deal. Obviously, the video recording is a big deal. Huge likes. Our favorite, American Defense Manufacturing, comes with a lock-in quick-release mount. A lot of companies using ADM right now. AGM's using them. I mean, there's so many companies using American Defense, and they're a great company. I would say the only dislikes that I have after, with a long laundry list of likes, it's a little big. It's 41 ounces. They've had to stick a lot of components on there. It's got a battery pack now. That the sticks off on the side. It's got the laser rangefinder box on it, so it's a little bulky. It's a little big. That and maybe just the fact that you got to close the lens cap. And I say it every time, people get tired of it. I'm sure got to close the lens cap to recalibrate or refresh, nuke the screen. Those are the only 2 things. This is a fantastic scope, though.
It's funny because I was sitting here and I was scratching some notes, and every time I'd scratch something, I got to say, you said it. I was like, ADM, all these things. And then I was okay, I'll talk about the calibration. Then you talked about the calibration. So you took my list as I was scratching down. I think there's 2 more things that I would say on the positive side. Maybe you mentioned in your very, very long glowing list there. But one I think is I do like the manual. They put a manual in the box that explains not necessarily even what things are, but there's some settings that are different in this scope that you're not going to find in a lot of lesser brands. And you know what? I don't care what they are. But what I like is they tell me where the recommended, setting is. So it needs to be between 4 and 6 or whatever. Well, that's great because, I know some guys, they like to get in there and what I call coon finger stuff. They want to press every button. And if N-Vision says it needs to be between 4 and 6, they want to be at 46 because that's totally different. And then they're going to call and go, man, I don't know why this looks so bad. I'm like, well, have you done where they suggested? Well, no. Okay, we'll try that.
Yeah.
Well, man, it looks like $1 million. Well, exactly. Trust them. They know what they're doing. So I do like that they give you all the suggestions. And, it's again, if you want to change it, you like something better, go for it. But I like that customer service. I mean, this is a 5-year warranty scope, and their turnaround time is going to be very good. I mean, they take care of their customers. And so if you have a problem with the scope, this is what they're here for. This is what you expect when you buy a very expensive scope. You don't want to buy one of these scopes that is the top of the line, the top of the industry, and get, cruddy customer service, and you're not going to get that. I mean, N-Vision is very responsive, a very good company. And I had a guy tell me the other day, we were kind of talking about this, and he said, well, if I spend $9,500, I should never have a problem with my scope. And I said, it is none of my business what your truck cost. I said, but I said,
my
I'm
truck
going to
was
say
in the shop last week.
Yeah, exactly. I said, but if you go buy a brand new truck, I said, and it's crazy to say, but new trucks now cost twice what my first house cost. And I said, you can drive that truck off the lot and you can have a problem tomorrow, and they don't even act like they really care. They're not even going to apologize about it. I said, so these are electronics. Yes, things can happen, but the good thing is that, you do have the customer service in place there. So that's a big deal. Really like that. Again, 5-year warranty, fast turnaround times on the repair or the replace, whatever they're going to do for you. I think if you ask me the negatives, what could it be? I think you said it. I mean, obviously we'd love to have an automatic calibration, or a semi-auto where you didn't have to close the lens cap. We're used to it on these scopes. I overlook it because they've done so many other good things like the video recording and the 18650 batteries. I totally get it. It's okay with me. I think the size is a little big, but that's okay. I mean, it's not crazy big for what it is, and I can't come up with negatives for this scope, and other than those few little things. The menu system is simple, it's easy, it's well laid out, you get into it, and things are I mean, it's not one of these like you get 4 levels deep and you don't know what you're doing. It's not like that. I mean, it's a simple to use optic. It's surprisingly easy for as good as it is. So anyway, with all that said, this is a heck of a scope. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. There's going to be a lot of people that are underwhelmed this year when we start doing our, best of series for 2021, because they're probably already going to know where we're going to rank this scope specifically. But it is if you're looking for the best of the best, this is the scope to go to.
You never know. Manufacturer could come out with something and, slip it in right before the end of the year.
They better get to slipping.
Yeah, exactly. So if y'all are interested in purchasing the N-Vision Halo XRF, I know we've talked about availability, but we are taking back orders for these. And actually, the inventory has gotten, or our allocations and our shipments have gotten better here recently. Yeah. So if you're interested in this.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, and I'll quit butting in, but we're also recording this in, November, right before Thanksgiving for 2021. Yeah. You may be watching this a year from now. You may be watching this 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, a ton can change. In 6
Absolutely.
days, a ton can change. So yeah, don't take what we're saying right here in mid-November 2021 to be, gospel for next week even. So anyway,
that's a good point. I had somebody comment on one of my videos, and I had to go back and look. I was like, man, that's for 3 years ago. That scope is not even around anymore. So yeah. Right. Anyway, the point of all of this is, if you want to know more about the XRF, if you possibly want to order the XRF, give us a call, 877-350-1818. You can find it on the website along with every other night vision and thermal scope that we've talked about on this podcast at outdoorlegacygear.com. That's outdoorlegacygear.com. You can find out more stuff about Outdoor Legacy by visiting all the socials on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at HansETX. That's HANSETX. And also on YouTube. Also do all the reviews, hunting videos over there, Hans ETX on YouTube. You can find it there. But if you want to find more past episodes of the Late Night Vision Show, Jason, it amazes me how people call and they will say, I listen to all your shows, or I listen every week on the way to work, or if I'm on a road trip, I'll just binge listen to all these shows. I'm like, man, there's 100 other things that I've probably listened to other than myself, but
that's right.
We appreciate it, because obviously people love this industry. You love a night hunting just as much as we do, but you can find all of our past episodes at thelatenightvision.show.com. Got them all listed there, and go check them out.
All right, folks, we do appreciate you watching this review, and we appreciate the support that you have given us through this show as we are getting ready to wind down 2021, which seems weird to say, but we are. There's only a few short weeks left. We are beginning to start our best of series, and we've got these things planned out. We're going to be talking about the best thermal optics and night vision optics in all the categories. Check those out. Stick around. We've got a bunch of good shows planned for you in the coming weeks. As Hans said, we do appreciate y'all coming back every week and watching the show. If you're a new viewer and you're just checking this out because you're interested in the XRF, hey, that's awesome. But feel free to subscribe to our channel, and hopefully you'll find some more content that interests you. We hope to see y'all again next week. But between now and then, y'all stay safe in the fields and keep making those bacon pancakes.